Hello, everybody. Welcome to A Space I Don't Know, which is a tabletop RPG, solo tabletop RPG about asexuality. This is off itch.io. You can find it here at drazillion.itch.io if you want to buy it for yourself. It was included in one of my bundles. Let's see what we've got. I've owned this game, purchased it in a bundle 84 days ago. That must have been for the Palestinian aid package, I believe. So if you bought that really big bundle about 3 months ago for Palestinian aid, you already own this, but you get it for $5 if you don't already. So this is a solo RPG. Which is an interesting experience. We've done this before with My Brain is a Stick of Butter, which was a solo ADHD RPG. And basically how solo tabletop RPGs work is usually there's some sort of sort of GM from the packet, from this PDF that sort of tells you about the decisions that you'll make, and then there's a procedurally generated thing, either with dice or, in this case, tarot cards. So, very fitting for me, this is a tarot-based RPG as well, so we'll be using the Octopunk deck made by Lone Lion. As you can see, let's get over here. We'll be using that as a frame of reference for what the game mechanics are. Basically, this will tell us what we need to do and what the game is. I know nothing about this. I do not know anything about how really this is played, so we'll be learning together. I probably should have looked over it a little bit more. I know that it's tarot-based, but that's kind of it. And, we'll basically see what happens. I think that the purpose of this game is to emulate what it is like to be asexual, what it is like to date as an asexual, what is it like to relate to other queer people in queer spaces as an asexual. And as an asexual person myself, I'm very interested to see how this feels. A lot of new faces in the chat today, and a lot of folks saying that they themselves are asexual, demisexual on the A spectrum in some capacity. That's really awesome. I hope you feel seen by this, and I hope you enjoy this. Like I said, I don't really know how it's going to go or anything about it. I've seen some good reviews for it on the page, so we'll just have to see. So we'll get into it. I'll give you the full introduction here, and we'll read along. A Space I Don't Know is a solo TTRPG about being asexual or part of the asexual spectrum, such as demisexual or gray ace, in an unfamiliar space where even the support of other queer people is not guaranteed, because there is a lot of aphobia in the queer community for sure. More broadly, it is about figuring out who is safe to out yourself to and the found family that may be gained from doing so, which is something I think any queer person can relate to regardless of whether or not you're asexual. Asexuality is sadly not unique in its position within the queer community, and this game can be played with identities of similar plights, such as those who are part of the aromantic spectrum. However, this game is written and designed with asexuality in mind. All you need is a deck of tarot cards and some sort of journal or method of recording things. Sure, what's in reach? We've got a couple things in reach, I guess. I don't know if that's really going to be visible. I'll write on an envelope that I'm not going to use. These envelopes suck because they don't have sticky stuff on the background, so. Alright, the title and aesthetic is inspired by Sayonara Wild Hearts, a game by Smogo, Song and Place I Don't Know by Daniel Olson. Space I Don't Know is created on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. Sovereignty was never ceded. Staying safe. This is ultimately a game about finding community while ace. The fact that this is a problem to begin with means it may be triggering. There's the X tool. So this is all just safety tools that people do. So character creation. You can create a character and not yourself to give some distance. I'll just do myself. I think that's fine. I mean, I'm probably not going to be able to really play like a real world version of myself because I do think this game involves dating and I am famously married. So, there's already going to be like some distance from the real world, but I'm terrible at being somebody who's not myself, so I'll just be myself, I guess. You can put cards in certain decks. You're allowed to ignore card meetings when coming out. You're given a chance to take breaks. Card meetings are deliberately vague. Okay. And then you have your grounding methods. I personally, grounding methods don't resonate with me. However, you should read over these if you want grounding methods for watching the stream. Although I would also just recommend, if anything in this triggers you or bothers you, no hard feelings if you turn it off and go do something else instead. It's totally fine. No offense taken. I do think, I don't know if the actual content warning is in here anywhere. Wow, there's a fucking lot. They say aphobia is like, that's the content warning, which is pretty natural. Internalized and or externalized aphobia. So again, if that's triggering, then be mindful. All right, so there's some steps we gotta do. First and foremost, know what you're getting into. Reading ahead will inform you, not spoil you. All right. Create your character's name, pronouns, and personality. I'll be Michelle, she, her. It'll just be me. Probably an alternate universe version of me that is like single and living in Chicago or something. But not actually like me. Not in depth. You should have an idea of how your character would act when I'm just playing myself. It's fine. Figure out my character's appearance. Hello, this is my face. See, I'm like, part of tabletop RPGs is the fun part is role-playing. I think in a situation like this, because I connect so much to the material, it's just easiest to just play myself. You must figure out the space which they have found themselves in. Your character should be a newcomer to the space, unfamiliar with the people already there and the unspoken rules that govern it. This can be a place your character only needs to exist for a short time, like a party, or a longer period of time, like a school. Alternatively, this can be a place your character can potentially return to in the future, but isn't obligated to, such as a networking event or a club. So that's interesting. So maybe some input from the audience on this, because there's a couple different things I could do. I could do the alternate universe version of me that is like living in Chicago and doesn't know anybody and has like moved there alone. And, you know, maybe has a couple filmmaker friends. I know a couple guys named Tim in Chicago who are filmmaker friends. I know a guy named Sean in Chicago who's a filmmaker friend. But other than that, like, I don't know anybody. And so that could just be like, hey, I'm going to a networking event with people in a city I don't know. We could go back in time. We could go back in time to high school, Michelle. And so, like, basically redoing high school. Like, the space that I'm in is high school. We could do, I don't really want to do like a job or anything like that, because my dream career is always going to be, you know, working from home and freelancing and all that sort of stuff, being a filmmaker. And also, like, you shouldn't hook up with people who you've met on your sets. But I think like a high school AU might be fun. High school AU, like, let's do that. Let's say I'm Michelle, I'm she, her, I'm me, but I'm 17 and I'm in my senior year of high school. And so we can bring in some people maybe that we know, you know, from real life, and that'll give me an opportunity. But it's like, because as an ace person who didn't know she was asexual in high school, this could be an interesting experience of, what if I did know, or what if I did figure it out, or what if I did grow up today in 2021 where this vocabulary is more broad and more known, because back when I was in high school, you know, 15 years ago, I'm older than I look. Back when I was in high school, we didn't really know what asexuality was. You know, we knew what gay was, we knew what bisexuality was, but that was kind of it. Like, nobody was non-binary. Nobody was out as non-binary. Nobody was out or aware that they were trans. Nobody was out or aware that they were pan or ace. Like, you had a couple kids in school who were gay, and when they came out, it was a big deal. Like, I remember I had a friend in our senior year of high school who came out as gay right before he ran for class president. And I think he won. I think he actually won class president. And, like, that was a huge deal. That, like, a kid who just came out as gay at 17, like, became elected class president. This was in 2009. So if you think about how far we've come, you know, if you don't know how far we've come, that's how far we've come in 12 years. So yeah, let's do that. Let's say the space is high school. It is high school in South Carolina in 2021 instead of 2009. Modern day high school AU. I was just born like 15 years after I was actually born. I'm a Gen Z kid now. How do you do, fellow kids? All right. We got to create the decks. The outward deck concerns the attitudes people openly express to the world. This is about the personality of the characters that I meet. However, in the case of the 4 aces, which are always in this deck, it also represents being open about being asexual. So maybe those are coming out cards. The inward deck concerns the attitudes people don't express openly. This represents the opinions people your character meet regarding asexuality. So outward deck is how people treat me. Inward deck is what people think of me. Rig the decks. As it uses cards, the game's results are largely down to chance. However, this chance can be skewed by placing cards specifically in either the outward or inward deck. So you're very much encouraged to do so in order to match your level of comfort. Okay. Remove the major arcana from the deck and put them aside. Take the 4 aces and put them aside. All right, so Sun is major arcana. Anything in the major arcana is like the named cards. So Empress, the Chariot. My tarot cards are gonna be all messed up after this. I'll let you see me doing this. These are things I should have done before the stream. Sorry, guys. I got distracted yelling about auditions on Twitter. Oh my god. I'm gonna go on a rant about this for a sec, just while I do this. So, inevitably, every single time I ever do an open call for anything, like, just anything, there are some entitled motherfuckers, and like, literally 95% of the time, they're cis men. I'm just gonna say that. Entitled motherfuckers who are always like, you know, oh, like I'll submit to this, whatever. And it's like, okay, you just send me your stuff, you know, it's an open call. You can send me your reel and follow the submission instructions and all that. And sometimes I'll get the submission materials and they just won't be right for the part. Like, it'll be a good headshot and stuff, but they're just not right for the part. Other times it's like, oh, you've never acted in your life, and this whole packet's very unprofessional, which is fine. Just means that, you know, maybe they shot their shot and whatever. You know, or they don't follow the submission guidelines at all, which is already kind of a bad sign. Regardless, I can have 100 different reasons for not sending somebody an audition. And vast majority of the time, it's not personal. Sometimes it is. Sometimes there's some people who are kind of on a blacklist for me. But for the overwhelming amount of time, like, it's not personal. It's just like, oh, you just weren't what I was looking for. And especially because I do fan films a lot of the time, and literally, you know, right now I'm doing sound-alike casting. So I missed an A, so I have to go back and look for it. Because I'm doing sound-alike casting, I'm very much like trying to find like a very specific voice type or a very specific, you know, look or personality. And like, I keep having these people who, you know, I'll do an open call, and then like a couple months later I'll do an open call for something else, and they'll like comment like, well, I didn't hear back from it last time, so like, guess you don't want me, or like, I didn't hear back from it last time, so guess I'm not good enough. And they'll like give me the sad face, and I'm like, why are you trying to guilt trip me into giving you an audition? Like, that's not helping. You're not helping yourself. Just like, I always reply to people who give me an audition. Like, I'll give an audition to maybe 20 to 50% of the people who give me, you know, their materials, if I think that they have potential or if they match, you know, the listing. But if you just simply aren't right for the part, then nothing is gonna magically change that, and try again next time. It's not personal. And I always reply to auditions because people put time into their auditions, and they, you know, they deserve closure for it. But if you just send me an email with your headshot, I get 100 of them. I'm not gonna reply to all of it. Okay, 22. There we go. That was my rant. That was my tarot sorting rant. Gracie says, I'm ace. I only figured that out a couple years ago, and I'm a long way out of high school. I was 26, like borderline 27. I was 26 when I figured it out. I was 27 when I came out. That's what it was. Mom says misspellings in resumes. The fact that people misspell my name when they send me their submission stuff is always a turnoff. It's like, and I'm not talking about like a little typo. I'm talking about like just didn't even look. didn't even care. All right, so we've got Major Arcana, put them aside. 4 aces, put them in a pile. This is the start of the outward deck. Major Arcana, we said we put aside. Add any cards to the outward deck that you specifically want to be included in it, and make a second pile of the inward deck with any cards you want to be included in it. Add the remaining cards to both decks, so they roughly have 28 cards each. Okay, so I think that's gonna take some time. So this is later. This is playing the game. But so we actually build the deck based on the actual minor arcana meanings. Okay, interesting. So the 4 aces are the exception. They literally represent openly asexual people within the space. So this is outward deck. The minor arcana contains 56 cards and 56 meanings to remember. Write down a brief description of each suit and the overall meanings of each number. I don't think... So these are your suits and these are your numbers. Interesting. So this basically is doing tarot. So inward is supportive, outward, opposed. Oh my gosh. Wow, they put a lot of thought into this. I'm not going to build this intentionally. No, we're going to do this randomly. 100% we're going to do this randomly. I think that's way more fun because the world is very diverse, and so we don't know what to expect. We'll meet closeted ace people, we'll meet closeted demi people, we'll meet out ace people, we'll meet like out allosexual people. I don't think there's any closeted allosexual people. That doesn't seem like a thing. Yeah, no, we're just gonna add 24 random cards to this. That's way more fun and way more easy. I mean, I guess you can rig the deck. I guess that's like a safety mechanism. Like if you want to only be surrounded by, you know, a certain amount of people, certain types of people, but nah, this is, let's make it random. I was accidentally out as ace before I even fully realized that. I used to say it as a joke when people asked why I didn't have any interest in boys. It wasn't until after college that I was like, oh, it's not just a joke. I don't know why I don't like men or women feelings. It's actually what I am. I'm sure this is gonna, like, my story will come up in the process of playing this game. But I do think, I used to joke about it in high school as well, or like high school or like college. I also used to think Austin was asexual in high school, and because he never had a girlfriend, and he just didn't seem interested in sex. Like he was just very much like, you know, he was just Austin. And it was actually the reason why I thought we could never be, because I thought like, oh, well, he'll never want to like be in a relationship with me because like he seems very asexual. But then for a couple of years, we're like, oh no, he's definitely like not asexual. He's, you know, in a relationship with me or whatever. And so like, it wasn't until our late 20s that we revisited that and we were like, oh, actually, no, there's definitely a reason why like we never like flirt with other people. You know what I mean? Like there's never been any sort of like Austin has never, like ever in the entirety of our relationship pointed out a woman and said like she's really attractive. Like I've never heard him talk about like female celebrity crushes. Never. Like, and so it's, Austin also identifies as asexual. So it turned out to be right. But back in 2009, like when I was in high school, or 2007, or like that whole time, our perception of what asexuality was basically like, you know, somebody who doesn't want a relationship, doesn't want sex, like doesn't even think of like having romantic interpersonal connections at all. And that's like so not what it is. You know, obviously, like, some of that is the aromantic spectrum. In addition to asexuality, they're different things. But also, it is a spectrum. There's people who, like, feel sexual attraction sometimes. There's people who feel it when they have an emotional connection with somebody. There's some people who don't feel it, but still very much want romance, you know? And it wasn't until I learned that nuance that I was comfortable identifying as asexual and realized, like, it resonated with me. And, you know, what did it was a Tumblr post, actually. I saw a Tumblr post explaining it in, like, 2018. Like, I was in DBH Fandom. I was back on Tumblr for DBH Fandom. And I saw that and was like, oh shit. I feel seen. Okay, so that's 24 cards. The other thing is, like, I used to assume, and this is also, like, what I was projecting upon Austin back in high school, I used to assume that being asexual meant you had zero libido, that you were completely uninterested in sex as a concept. And that's also very not true. There's plenty of asexual people who are involved even in, like, the kink communities and stuff like that. There's plenty of asexual people who like sex. There's plenty of asexual people who have libidos that maybe they live with and that they take care of themselves, but they're not interested in expressing that with other people. Huge spectrum. And I'm sure that's going to come up in this deck. We know each other from school. Yes, famously, Ian. Austin and I have known each other since I met Austin when I was 13. I was 13 and he was 14. I was in 7th grade. He was in 8th grade. And we didn't really know each other that well until senior year because we were different grades. But then I skipped a grade. I moved up into his senior year. And then I started having classes with him when I was a senior. So so Austin might show up in this game because it's a high school AU. I remember when I was in elementary school, I had crushes, but as I've gotten older, I realized, oh wait, I didn't want to be in a relationship. I just want to be friends. Separating platonic and romantic attraction as an asexual person, it will be my lifelong struggle. There are absolutely people I have crushes on, who I want to squeeze them and cuddle them, and I just feel warm when I think about them. But when I think about being in a relationship with them, I'm like, nah. Or when I think about having sex with them, I'm kind of like, nah. And then I'm just like, no, that's called a friendship. But there's very few people I feel very strongly about in terms of friendships. I have a lot of, like, people I like, but it wasn't until I got into adulthood that I really found those friendships that, like, light me up and just make me feel so warm about that person and really, really full of love for that person. And those types of friends, those ride or dies, only come along like once in a while, but I've been collecting a very nice huddle of ride or die people for the last few years since I really started getting out in the film community. Okay, so I've made this 28 card deck. Supportive Uninformed. And then inward deck is Minor Arcana. So inward deck should just be 28 and 28. Yeah. So cool. So we just separate them. That seems easy. I just don't know where I put the aces in. Add the remaining cards to both decks. So they both have roughly 28. Do we do Major Arcana at all? I don't think we do, actually. I don't see anything about the Major Arcana. Yeah, so Major Arcana sits to the side. I just don't know if I put the aces in both decks. I think they're only in the outward deck. Yeah, okay. So we'll shuffle the 4 aces into the outward deck. I went years thinking asexuality is such an interesting concept before realizing I'm on that spectrum. Yeah, ain't that how it goes with a lot of queerness in it. Once I got to, like, you know, my 4th or 5th, you know, oh, she's really great. Crush feeling, I started to maybe accept that maybe I'm not exclusively attracted to men. So still on that journey. Don't want to put a label on that yet, but you know, that's a thing. That's a thing. Oh, the other thing. So this will come up maybe, I don't know, but this is my personal experience. I want to put a disclaimer on this because your mileage may vary. But I was on birth control pills for 9 years, from 19 to 28 till like last year. And that was mostly for medical reasons, mostly. And they say that that can like hurt your libido and like hurt your sexuality and all this sort of stuff. And there was a part of me that wondered, like, if part of my asexuality was having been on birth control for 9 years and like my relationship with sex and my relationship with, you know, attraction and stuff like that was a result of like my hormones being like messed with for 9 years. And what I found when I got off birth control, because when I did, I was a little like curious / worried. I didn't know what was going to happen in terms of like, am I still going to feel asexual? Like, am I still going to identify? What ended up happening was, yes, I'm very much still asexual. I would say that aspect of my life has not changed at all since I got off birth control. So that means that like all along, that had nothing to do with, you know, hormonal or anything like that. Like it is who I am. What did happen when I got off birth control is I became about 35% more attracted to women. So it's funny. Like, it's one of those things. For like the 9 years that I was on birth control, I was like, women are great, but it's, you know, whatever. Since I've gotten off, I'm a lot more like, oh yeah, no, I might actually want to put a label on that soon, because it's becoming hard to ignore. Like it's becoming really like really common. So that's fun. Yeah, antidepressants, that's another one that can, you know, be a little bit like, you don't know. All right, so this is outward deck, this is inward deck. Cool. Playing the game. So this is, okay, so we're just gonna look at that later. All right, the game itself is divided into five phases. With the exception of the new beginning and the first impressions, they can be done in whatever order makes sense for the narrative. My character's entering space for the first time. Okay, so senior year of high school. I've moved up into senior year of high school, full of a bunch of kids that I don't really know, because I'm not used to being in this grade. I've skipped a grade. So, you know, I'm meeting a lot of people who maybe I've vaguely known, you know, in high school, but I'm really getting to have classes with them more for the first time. If I remember how I felt in high school for real, the biggest emotion was just ready to get it over and done with. I was very, very excited to just be done with high school. I was not having fun in high school. So I know some people, and I also, like, I have my old friends. Like, I have Greg, you know, who was also a friend in high school who was from my grade, but he's not in my classes as much anymore. So he's around, but, you know, not as much anymore. And there's some other people there who are, you know, in relationships. There's some other people there, like Austin, maybe, who are attractive, but maybe, you know, that don't really seem to give me any indication that they want to date me. Sooner or later, my character meets the arcana that they share the space with. This is represented by flipping over the arcana's outward card. Okay. So this is outward, this is inward. Okay. The 9 of Wands. All right. I can choose to have my character meet several arcana at once or just one at a time. Flip over the outward card in each arcana chosen arcana's pair. If the outward card is one of the 4 aces, your character has met an arcana who is openly asexual. Their inward card is irrelevant and can be safely discarded. Oh, okay. So when the tarot cards aren't meaning mine, determine what your arcana's name or pronouns are. Like with your character, personality is not even in depth. What's your character's initial thoughts about this arcana? Did they get along with them and did they feel safe around them? If you've chosen to keep some arcana unflipped, repeat this process. Okay, so then we have the inward world. So we have to put the inward world down. If you're intrigued by one of the arcana but don't think your character would come out to them, you can further describe encounters with them. You could draw a card from the outward or inward decks, use the card's art and meaning as a prompt to better elaborate on the relationship between your character and the arcana. If your character is coming out to one of the 4 aces, they automatically accept you for who they are. If you want to come out to any of the other arcana, you flip over their inward card. Oh, interesting. So this is how they present outwardly, and this is like how I think they are, and then this is what they actually think. So that's an interesting game mechanic. So you don't know what their inward world is. You don't really know what their thoughts and misconceptions are. I like this. So the only thing I don't get, if the outward card is flip the outward card, if you've chosen to keep someone or flip, repeat this process whenever you want your character to meet someone. If you're intrigued, but you don't think your character would come out to them yet, further describe encounters with them, draw a card from the outward or inward decks, or from the major arcana. Use the card's art and meaning as a prompt to better elaborate. So I could just keep doing the outward deck, maybe? I don't think I have any stuff about... Yeah, I don't have any stuff about this. Okay, so inward deck by category, outward deck by category. Cool. So, all right. So this person, it's the first day of school. I'm in high school. It's the first day of school. I've got the 9 of Wands. 9 means your goal is near, but you have not reached it yet. You need to make that final step. And Wands is the element of fire, as well as creativity, ambition, and courage. Like the fire these wands can conjure, the suit is passionate and unpredictable. The energy this wand brings may be useful, but there's always the danger of being burned. So this seems like a person who's very ambitious, but also creative and very near their goal. The person that comes to mind when I think of this is the person who is the valedictorian. I won't use people's real names. I'll be thinking of people who are real people, but I won't use their real names. Let's say that this person is named Amber. Amber, the valedictorian. She's very, very studious and driven. She makes good grades. All she cares about is her good grades and being the president of all the clubs. She's very determined to keep her valedictorian status and also wants to, be known as, she's very much known as the smart one. She's voted, most intelligent in the superlatives. This is the type of person I would very easily be friends with, I think. I actually was friends, I'm still to this day, actually, I'm friends with the person who's the valedictorian of our class. The person who was the valedictorian in the class under me, the one that I grew up with, is a person who is very nice, but I just didn't keep up with. These types of people are usually like, I get along with them. I don't usually get close to them, but we can definitely, I was 5th in my class, so I was very much like a nerdy kid too. I was very much driven by making good grades and the fear of God. Philo asks, is she single? I would also say the other thing about a character like this, both of the people who I'm thinking of in terms of valedictorian, never dated really in high school. These are people who never had boyfriends, never really were ever seen with anybody. They were very much singularly focused on their grades. And particularly the person, that Amber is based on, is a person who to this day, I don't really think, I don't keep up with her that well, but I don't really recall a whole lot of long-term relationships or anything like that. She definitely isn't a person who I've really thought of when I think of dating. So that being combined with the fact that this is the wand suit in the tarot deck, meaning that, it's the pride suit, I could see a character like this potentially being asexual. And maybe because just not really having an interest or not really having any sort of outward expression of sexual interest. Potentially because they were in a situation where their dad wouldn't let them date or something. But also just how they vibe. But like I said, this is not a person I tend to necessarily get close to very easily. So I don't think I would come out to this person. And let's say that I am going into my senior year of high school, knowing that I'm ace, and having put a label on that over the summer. And I haven't really come out to anybody yet. So this is, we're going into high school, senior year. some new friends, like some old ones. These are people who don't know I'm ace at all. Hey, Austin. Austin was salutatorian. It was the runner-up. What the hell is a Victorian? Yeah, valedictorian, first in your class, highest grades. Salutatorian is second highest grades. They both had to give a speech at our graduation. So Austin gave a speech. I don't remember what he said at graduation. Sorry, Austin. So I would not come out to this person yet, but I like the cut of their jib. So this is again the only part I'm kind of tripping up on. I guess you say you pull more major arcana to kind of get to know them better. Let's say that we end up in some kind of like club together, because that's kind of how I ended up bonding with people. Like we end up in like yearbook club or something together, and so I get to know them a little bit better, and then so we do some more outward arcana. The Three of Swords. Swords is associated with the element of air, as well as knowledge, conflict, and the mind. Much like swords, this suit can be a double-edged one. The very blade that serves as powerful can also cut you down. Swords can be your greatest friends, but also your greatest foes. And in the case of three means groups and interactions, as well as progress and development. So in a group setting, such as yearbook club, like the 3 suggests, the swords starts to come out. And in this space, I realize that this person, because they are very ambitious and very smart, they're also very bossy. And they're also very, like, discerning and critical of my work. And when I get to know them a little bit more, it turns out that I feel very intimidated by them because they are so smart and they are so driven, which means that this is probably not a person I would come out to. This is probably a person who, the more I get to know them, the more I start to realize, like, we don't have a connection. Like, and we're starting to drift away from, like, the real world Amber. Amber in real life is not like this at all. But because of, it's an RPG and this is kind of how the game is going, I have known people like this where it was like, oh, that's like a really smart, ambitious person, and then you get to know them a little bit more. It's like, oh, okay, they're really competitive to the point of like not wanting to be friends. So I would put this person aside and say, probably not gonna come out to them. Let's find a new friend. 2 of Swords. Swords, again, is about, passion and about fire and knowledge and conflict. 2 is balance, duality, and partnership, though. So this is somebody I am paired up with in a group project in class. This is somebody I don't know a whole lot. We'll name him Carl. This is somebody I'm paired up with in class for some kind of like, Spanish assignment or something like this. But this is a person who, again, like conflict, maybe it does say that, the very blade that serves as powerful tool, could be your greatest friends. So, I could maybe connect with a sword. I could maybe connect with somebody who's very smart and, maybe we're having a mental connection on something. But it's too hard to tell, I think. I think right now I don't really know much about them. I know that it's like I'm paired up with a really smart guy named Carl on this project. It's going okay. I haven't decided yet if it's like, basically, this is a relationship where the only thing we know about each other is the project, and we're not really connecting on a friend level. We don't really know that much about each other than this work that we have to do for this class. And I think that that's really what I'm going to interpret these swords as in this case, is like, it's not like it's good or bad. It's just like, it's very boilerplate. It's very career and school focused and not very focused on like getting to know each other. So I'm going to say, hey, Carl, maybe let's meet outside of class. And Carl apparently tells me that he's asexual. Maybe this is just Austin, actually. That's awesome. So in this case, we don't need an inward world card because I decide that Carl, who I've been paired up with on the Spanish project, and who just casually drops in conversation one day while we're like making a poster together for class, that he is asexual. And I'm like, oh my God, I haven't related to you yet, Carl, but I'm also asexual. And then Carl's my best friend forever. I don't. But but you know what's funny is like that's often how it happens is like you'll find somebody in a very like unrelated sort of situation where like you got to get out of your normal friend group sometimes. You got to get out of your normal like people that you hang out with because like you kind of know your friends, like you know your peers, you know your coworkers, and you know it's not until you're paired up with some random guy from the back of the class on some project that you've like a guy you've kind of overlooked and never really talked to before. That's where you sometimes find people who are kindred spirits. So I really like that actually. So thanks, Carl. And not only, so Carl is the Ace of Cups. I think there is something about the Ace of Cups here. Uninformed, queer people in an ace, opposed, inward by suit. Does it actually say something? Well, I guess they say, like, specifically about this. The cups mean, element of water as well as emotions, relationships, and compassion. Similar to water, the suit is fluid and adaptable, which adjusts depending on surroundings and stimuli. Cups may go with the flow, but if wronged, they can become a raging storm. So, Carl is the type of ace and the type of person who very much just adapts to his surroundings. And that's why he's like the quiet one in the back of the class, is because he's just sort of like, he's not closeted, he's out, but he isn't really like the type of person to like wear a pride flag or anything like that. He's mostly just like, hey, I'm still in a high school in South Carolina, so I'm just kind of gonna like try to act like everybody else and try to like act aloe. And that's why it was such a surprise that he turns out to be ace, is because he just sort of like masked as aloe, like for, or just like masked as, you know, being nondescript. So everybody just sort of assumed that he was aloe and that he was cishet like the entire time. Which is tough because sometimes like I'm a type of person who I kind of don't believe in the concept of necessarily like straight passing, because I think that people can always tell when there is something queer about you. I mean, I got called all sorts of slurs in middle school. And I mean, I was at that time identifying as a heterosexual, allosexual, hetero-romantic person. So there was nothing about me for people to like claim as like queer or claim as like a slur or whatever. But people still knew, that there was something. And I was the type of girl, like, I would, like, openly talk about having crushes on guys and things. So, you know, it's one of those things of, like, I think you can mask. I think a lot of us naturally do it, even unconsciously. But there's always going to be something there internally and externally as well. God, a lot of new people in the chat today. Hello, Toby. Hello, Rodent, 1241. I think there's a Swaggle Gavin as well. Queen Bevic. So Carl's my new best friend. Actually, Carl probably wouldn't be my new best friend, but Carl definitely would be like that ace friend that I have, right? Like Carl would be the one person that I would be like, hey, I have somebody I can talk to about being asexual. And me and Carl don't really have much in common other than that, other than we like sit next to each other in class. But it's kind of good that way because it means that like we don't have a lot of like relationship stuff that really gets in the way. We can really just use each other as a support system and be like, hey man, like being ace is weird, right? And like he could be like, yeah, here's an asexual experience that I had. That's like all we talk about. Especially because that's like the first person I've come out to at school, apparently, like according to this game. So cool. Let's meet some new people. A shark. 6 of Pentacles. What do we got? Pentacles is a suit associated with the element of earth, as well as material wealth, pragmatism, and the body. Grounded like the earth, the suit can be dependable, but at the same time, reliability can also be a flaw. They may be unable to deal with change, stubbornly trying to hold on to what they've always known. Oh, I already have a person in mind for this. And 6 means overcoming conflict and harmony is possible. So this person, mentally, is based off somebody I know who was my middle school best friend. I'll call her... I'll call her Alice. I will call her Alice. So one of my middle school best friends was somebody who was extremely religious, and raised in an extremely Baptist religious household. And I actually saw this happen, like when one of our friends came out as gay in middle school. She definitely like struggled with that a little. Like, it was one of those years where, like, you know, we were accepting in South Carolina in middle school. People were accepting of like gay students in the sense of like, oh, we'll still be friends with you. But there were definitely things that were like super homophobic about the way that she and I at the time thought about how you know, queerness manifested and how queer lives were led and how queer bodies should be and how queer sex should be and all that sort of stuff. So I would say this person, like somebody in the pinnacle suit, like very dependable and reliable. Like, she was a very dependable friend. She was always there for me. Like, she was always very like steady, but unable to deal with change and stubbornly holding on to what they've always known. In a South Carolina high school, definitely somebody who was like, oh yeah, no, you're married to your religious upbringing. And so that's who this reminds me of. This is definitely not somebody I would feel comfortable coming out to, particularly in high school. Although the 6 means overcoming conflict and harmony is possible. So I still have hope for this person. Maybe I see that they're starting to become more accepting. Maybe I see that they're starting to, you know, expose themselves to new ideas. Maybe I think in my little 17-year-old mind that I should be the example for this person of like, hey, I'll be the asexual person you know in real life so that you can have a frame of reference. Because I find with people like this, the only way that they will come around to being accepting and being knowledgeable and being supportive is if somebody in their life represents that concept. Like somebody they already love represents that concept. And I've seen that happen so many times, like in my own life and also just, you know, with friends that I know, where they had, you know, these were people who had like really homophobic or queerphobic parents or family members. And then when they came out, that person or that parent's love for their child actually like it outweighed their bigotry. That doesn't always happen, unfortunately. I also know a lot of people who the bigotry won, unfortunately. But no, I've seen quite a few people who it's like their parents were people you would never expect to be in a pride parade 10 years ago, and now it's like, oh, they're buying rainbows and stuff for their child. It's kind of weird, but it's good. It's good to see that happen. So I still have hope for this person. I'm gonna plant some seeds with this person and maybe get their opinions and maybe talk to them about like some hypotheticals and maybe just like ask them about their dating life a little bit, like what they feel about things and see where it goes. The Ace of Swords, really? They're asexual too? That's funny. That's so funny. So, wow. So what did I call this person? I called this person Alice? Alice, who was raised in a very religious household and has always been very like, I'm gonna wait till marriage to have sex, who has always been very like low-key uncomfortable with like our gay friends and maybe like didn't say anything, but you could tell like didn't know what to think of it, has herself been struggling with the fact that she is asexual. That's so funny that it worked out that way, but it's so true. Like that, there's so many people like that. And people are saying in the chat, yeah, like they think this is a phase. I have really religious friends and I'm literally the only queer person in their lives. It absolutely changed their minds about the LGBTQIA community. That's awesome. So I guess I was raised to be Jehovah's Witness and told to be unaccepting. And as you could guess, that didn't go well. I'm kind of gay now. Austin and I say that the Catholic to queer pipeline is kind of a straight line. Austin's Catholic, so he can make that joke. Yeah, Also, yes, congratulations, Toby just came out as trans. Wonderful. I wish you the best with that. Yeah, no, so this is a person, man. So Amber came out to me as Ace, which is funny as well because, like, think about it. Like, this is a person raised super religious, like, uncomfortable with queerness as a concept, thinks that they're gonna wait till marriage to have sex, like, with a cis man and have lots of babies and have, like, this, you know, nuclear family life script sort of life. Very, very, like, pious. This is what they've been raised their entire life to be prepared for. And she's been struggling this entire time with the fact that she doesn't have crushes on boys. She knows she's not gay. She keeps checking to ask herself if she's gay because she doesn't have crushes on boys, which is giving her a complex because she's like, if I don't like boys, am I a lesbian? It's like, no, Amber, you're not a lesbian. Or not, no, Alice, you're not a lesbian. But you don't feel sexual attraction to men. And you're asexual. And I think the cool thing about this is that if my character in this game is closeted asexual, but is maybe starting to tell people, and maybe the rumors are starting, maybe people are starting to talk behind my back about it, maybe Carl let some shit slip, or maybe Amber overheard us, or Alice overheard us talking about some stuff, in class. The fact that I am a safe person for her to come out to is really, like, that's just how it goes a lot of the time. It's like, you just kind of know, like, you just kind of have that vibe of, like, I think there's a not straight thing going on with this. There's something not quite straight is going on here. And you just sort of get that sense of safety. That's so cool. So right now we have Carl, the watery one, who is very, like, just sort of, like, quiet, unassuming, not really drawing a lot of attention to himself, openly asexual, but, like, doesn't really tell a lot of people, just sort of, like, drops it in conversation and doesn't make a big deal out of it. Then we have Alice, who has only come out to me because she is in a situation where she's still trying to figure herself out and is in a, religious family. Alice got to do that Am I Gay quiz. So, all right. So we have 2 ace friends now. I hope I don't, like, draw all of these. So we got a new friend, the 5 of Wands. The wand suit is the element of fire, as well as creativity, ambition, and courage. Passionate, unpredictable, maybe useful, but always danger of the being burned. This is your manic pixie dream girl archetype. And the 5 is conflict and negative change. All right, so conflict and negative change. This does not sound like a very friendly person. This is a person, God, I'm trying to think of, like, there was a guy in Spanish class. I will call him David. There's plenty of guys actually named David in school. This is not who I'm thinking of. There's a guy in Spanish class I remember named David, and he, quote unquote David, and he was very, like, cute and energetic, but he was wild child. He was a party boy. He really, like, connected with me for some reason. I think it was the typical, like, those party boy guys, like, love to find the girl who's, like, really quiet. I wasn't quiet. I've never been quiet, but, like, the nerdy girl who's, like, very afraid of her own shadow and, like, goody two-shoes and never gets detention, and, like, I was that kid. They love to find girls like that and try to, like, turn them into, like, drug-using alcoholic, like, party girls sneak out in the middle of the night. And, like, he never tried to do that with me, but I feel like he definitely had a fascination with me because of that innate, like, ooh, like, this one's a challenge, Like, women want to change men, they say. I think men equally want to change women, and they, for the worse, a lot of the time. So that's what I think of when I think of the 5 of Wands, is, like, negative change and conflict, but also, like, passionate, unpredictable, like, courageous, like, the one that's trying to get me out of my shell and experiment and do all these things that it's not in my comfort zone at all. And, like, they're fun to talk to and joke around with, but not somebody I would trust, and definitely not somebody I would see out of school. So I'm not really interested in getting to know him more. Then we have the Five of Cups. Cups is emotions, relationships, and compassion. Fluid and adaptable one, may go with the flow. And then the 5 is conflict and negative change. So a compassionate relationship with negative change. I would say, conflict. Conflict. Emotions, relationship, and compassion. You know who this makes me think of? I don't know if he's in the chat today. This one makes me think a little bit of Greg. This one makes me think a little bit of Greg, actually. Greg and I, in high school, in my opinion, he might disagree. He might think I'm crazy. Greg and I in high school had kind of an on-again, off-again friendship, I feel. Like, it wasn't that formal. It wasn't like we would go periods of time where we were like enemies, but we definitely like would go with periods of time where we would like hang out, and we would like, he would drive me home from school and stuff. And then we would go periods of time where I would like get really irritated with him, or like we would just, we were definitely like oil and water a lot in high school. We disagreed on a lot of things. We argued all of the time. We stayed friends, obviously, till this day, and we had a lot in common. And we were like, I mean, we've been friends since 4th grade, but we definitely, like, in high school had a very, like, fiery sort of, like, argumentative friendship. So I'm gonna just straight up say that this was Greg, not even under a pseudonym. This is Greg, 5 of Cups. My mom says he was a typical boy. That's true. Like, he is very much like, and actually, in addition to Greg, there's like 3 other guys I could easily make this card, because we were very much like, oh, we were friends, but they were boys who were constantly arguing with me about things. So, but a good kid, ultimately. Yes, a good kid, a good guy, would drive me home from school, at least, was very helpful. And so that's why we remained friends all these years. So I would say, like, if I was asexual in high school, I don't know if I would have come out to Greg in high school. At least not in this state, at least not during one of our, like, argumentative periods. Because I feel like, and it's so hard to put into perspective, too, because, like I said, back in the day, you know, asexuality wasn't really, like, known amongst people our age. And so would it be a circumstance where I would be like, hey, Greg, I'm asexual, and Greg would respond, that's not real? Or, like, whatever, like, that's not real, I don't know what you're talking about. Or are we talking about modern day, like, people kind of know about it? I guess the equivalent back then would have been like if I came to Greg and was like, hey, Greg, I'm gay. Because, like, that was known and accepted. I do think he would have been accepting, actually. Because we had friends. We had friends at the time. There's one I'm thinking of in particular who were openly gay. Including, like, the class president guy who I was talking about earlier was, like, one of Greg's really good friends in high school. So, or at least maybe before high school. And so, like, I don't think, assuming that asexuality today would have been like what being gay was like 12 or 13 years ago in terms of like the awareness and like the kind of frame of reference that people have, I think he would have been okay with it. Like, I think he probably wouldn't have been the first person I would have come out to, but I think eventually I would have, and it would have been fine. So I'm gonna try my first internal world and see what the internal opinion is. Now this is when we're starting to get into the RPG stuff of like we're going into Bizarro universe Greg and not actual Greg. But character Greg in the game, internal world, I come out to Greg and this is what the response is. The 7 of Pentacles is supportive. A closeted queer person who is not ace. So obviously Greg in real life is not queer, but this is an interesting, scenario. So let's say that this person I have this on again, off again, sort of like argumentative, hot friendship with, like very much like, high tempers. We drive each other nuts all the time, but we still are at its core very good friends. I come out as asexual, and it turns out this is a person who is closeted, not asexual himself, but maybe is trans or non-binary or bi or gay. And I had a couple friends who were like this actually as well, people who were closeted. So that's fascinating. And so in this case, it would kind of be like, all right, like we argue all the time, but I can see why we're friends. Like we have something in common that maybe we don't talk about. So this went pretty well, and this person ended up being supportive. So cool. So right now I have 2 ace friends, one of them who's chill, the other one who I'm trying to help through her ace stuff. And then I have a friend who is queer but not ace, who is supportive. Next, we've got the Ace of Pentacles. So this is a person who's openly ace. This person, so let's say I decide, now that I have a couple openly ace friends and a supportive queer friend who is not ace, I decide that I'm going to join the Gay Straight Alliance Club. Still not out yet to everybody, but I decide, hey, I'll join the Gay Straight Alliance because I'm an ally. As so many people do in the beginning. I'm an ally. I'm straight, but I'm really invested in this for some reason. And when I go to that meeting, I meet an openly ace person. So that's cool. This is going to be an original character because I didn't know any openly ace people in high school. We'll name this person Nyx. N-Y-X, Nyx. This person is openly asexual, and this person is the type of person, they are on the board of the GSE, they are the secretary for the GSE, they have an ace pride flag on their backpack, they are loud and proud about being asexual, unlike my other 2 ace friends, so it's a variety of experience. This is also a person who I learned some interesting things about asexuality from, because again, as of my 2 other friends, I have, Carl, who's an asexual, who may actually also be on the aromantic spectrum, has never really dated anybody, never expressed an interest sexually or romantically or anybody, has just kind of been focused on studies, but in reality, is asexual nondescriptly. And then we have, somebody we're kind of helping through, Alice, who is discovering her asexuality and trying to get over her religious upbringing. This person, Nyx, is a sex-positive ace, which is a new experience for me as an asexual in high school. This person is a person who is not a virgin, talks about that openly, and has had sexual experiences and may even also be into some BDSM stuff and some kink stuff. This person is 18, by the way. They are a senior who is 18. Just disclaimer. And so it's a really interesting experience to have conversations with Nyx, because Nyx is very eye-opening about the fact that being asexual does not have to mean anti-sex. It does not have to mean a fear of sex brought on by something like a religion or fear of sin. It doesn't have to go with a disinterest in sex, like in the case of Carl. It has to do with the lack of sexual attraction to another human and another person, particularly, removed from, romantic attraction and everything like that. So I really like this person. We have really cool conversations at the meeting. They're always the person that I grab my pizza and my juice and I sit in a corner and I talk to them for 2 hours. They're probably a Scorpio, and we have a lot of fun. And so, yeah, that's a really cool experience to have that. I kind of wish I had met somebody like that in high school. I kind of knew somebody like that in high school. They were not asexual, but they were kind of that archetype. They were kind of that, she was very goth. And she was also in Fandom. She wrote fan fiction. She was a huge fan of Evanescence. And we met in drama class, and that was the only class we ever had together. And she was a few years older than I was, so like she graduated and I was still like a freshman or whatever. But she was like a very eye-opening kind of person that I met and was very grateful to have met. So that's actually who kind of comes to mind with that. All right, next up we've got the Six of Wands. Overcoming conflict, harmony is possible. And Wands is the element of fire and creativity, ambition and courage, passionate and unpredictable. Overcoming conflict, harmony is possible. Somebody who's overcoming conflict, harmony is possible, creative, ambitious, courageous. You know who this makes me think of is not a student. This makes me think of one of my teachers, my Spanish teacher from high school. One of the things that I thought was the coolest about my Spanish teacher in high school was somebody. She was an immigrant, not from a Spanish country. She was actually an immigrant from an Asian country. And Spanish was like her fifth language. She knew 2 Asian languages. She knew English. And then in high school, she learned French. And then in college, she learned Spanish. She was very adept with languages. And she had one of the hardest lives that I had ever heard of anybody. I mean, she had so much personal trauma in her childhood. And she was one of the most bubbly, like loving, warm, like inspiring people that I think I've ever met in my life. And one of my favorite teachers that I've ever had. And so this makes me think of her, you know, somebody who's creative and ambitious and brave, but also has overcome so much conflict. And it's interesting because we had a very open communication, the two of us. And I think that if there ever was a teacher that I would have come out to, it would have been her. If I had been in a position where like I wanted to be open about something, you know, if I wanted to be open about, you know, like queerness in school, and if I had been aware of that at the time, I think I would have. And I also know like there were several of my gay friends who were in her classes who really enjoyed them and she connected with very well. So she also seemed to be a safe space for other queer people that I could tell. So, I don't think I need to get to know this person more. I think I would want to go ahead and just come out to her and in the internal world. And let's see. So like outwardly, she's very like warm. She seems like a safe space. She has seemed like she's given a safe space for gay classmates. So I think I can come out to her as asexual and she would be understanding and supportive. But you never know. Seven of Swords. Ooh, so the Seven of Swords. What does the Seven of Swords mean? The Seven of Swords means opposed. This is someone who is not queer and specifically is opposed. That's so heartbreaking. Because I mean, I'm looking at the inward deck and like they all describe like different things. If I had drawn the Six of Wands, it would be somebody who is not queer, who is uninformed. So this isn't somebody who's uninformed. This is somebody who specifically is opposed. And so as much as I love my Spanish teacher and thought she'd be a safe space, and she seemed to make a safe space for other queer people, she is not interested in the idea of asexuality and is actually opposed to the concept and thinks that it's like, you know, it's not natural, or that it's, you know, we're just putting labels on things that, you know, are just, you know, not actually like meaningful. That, oh, what she would probably tell me actually, if this was her inward world, is, oh, you're just a kid, you'll grow out of it, or that'll change when you get older. And what's really heartbreaking is actually the fact that I can picture her saying that. Like, as supportive and warm and as great of a teacher she was, and probably still is, I could absolutely see her being a little boggled by the idea of asexuality and, you know, giving me kind of the brush off of just like, oh, you'll grow out of that, or oh, that's normal. And those people exist. Those people absolutely exist. People who are very, very like nice people, who are very like generally supportive people, who just like dismiss the idea of what this is. So It's disappointing, but it's real. It's very true to life. That happens all the time. So, a little heartbroken by that. And then I meet the Queen of Pentacles. Queen of Pentacles. Let's see. Associated with the element of water, as well as understanding, cultivation, and introspection. So support and introspection. And Pentacles is grounded, dependable. So this is a very safe person. So this is somebody who's very supportive, very dependable, very safe. Also associated with understanding and introspection. And pragmatism as well. So who from school, who at that time in my life was a very pragmatic and dependable person and very much about like getting me to be introspective and understanding. I still to this day have a friend who I met through Fandom when I was in high school. We both met in Heroes Fandom, and she was much older. This was back in the day where like an older person interacting with minors in an innocuous way wasn't something people were so afraid of. And like by today's standards, it would have been a weird relationship. But back in the day, I mean, like I said, we're still friends to this day. And our relationship was never like inappropriate or weird. So, and she was kind of like, I mean, I guess, again, by today's standards, like, you would say, like, maybe, like, a fandom mom, but, like, we didn't use terms like that, because I actually find that terms like that kind of, like, gross. But she was, like, she was getting married, and she was, I think bisexual? I think bi or pan, actually. Like, I think she was queer. She was queer and she was Wiccan. Two things that I thought were awesome back in high school. And she was also, I remember, like, in my little conservative bubble, I remember she was, like, my first, like, liberal friend. Like, first view of, like, a world outside of myself. And a world outside of the walls of my school. And that was so, like, that pragmatism and that introspection that friendship gave me was very important. And I think that this is a cool person to talk about, because this is a person who is very liberal, is very far away, and this person that, you know, if it goes poorly coming out to them, I will probably, like, you can always block them and not be friends with them anymore. So like there's distance there that you can, there's like safety and distance. There's also the fact that she's a little older. She herself is queer. She herself is, like, you know, in a religious minority. Like, there's things about her that she understands what it's like to be different and is going to be very open-minded to other people's experiences. I 100% would have come out to her first. If this was actually back in high school and I knew I was asexual and I knew I was queer, she absolutely would have been the first person I would have come out to. And you know how I know that is because the first person I did actually come out to about asexuality was somebody I knew in DBH fandom. It was I had somebody in DBH fandom who I was talking to quite a lot and working on, you know, fic together a lot, you know, in late 2018. And on Tumblr, when I started to realize that that's what I was, and I started to accept that, like, asexuality was my identity, the first person I told was the person that I knew from Hero, or from DBH fandom. So this is really cool. Let's see what her inward world to that would have been. The King of Swords. Ooh. It looks like a grim card, but we'll see. King of Swords. Supportive. Openly queer people who aren't ace, which is exactly what she was. So yes, so I came out to my fandom friend who was openly queer, not ace, but openly queer. She's supportive. She's super, like, as I expected, she's very open-minded. She's very supportive. She wishes the best for me. And luckily, this is what actually happened, mostly with the other person that I met in DBH fandom who I came out to first. Very supportive person as well. So, yeah. Oh, Neff's the damn it AU Spanish teacher. I mean, again, like, I still to this day don't know if, like, maybe that person, like, would have been that way in real life, too. But I love that this actually came, like, the way it did. Like, that this was an openly queer person who was not ace and supportive, because, oh, man, I was hoping that it would actually work out that way, because that's what it would have been. That's what it would have been. Ugh, I love that. So I got my fandom friend on my side. Like, I came out to my Spanish teacher. She rejected me. It was bad. She made me feel bad. I go home. I get on AOL Instant Messenger. I talk to my fandom friend. I'm like, I came out as asexual, and my teacher said she's mean. And, like, my friend in fandom is just like, you're valid. I support you. Then we got the Eight of Wands. I think this will be the last one I do before I wrap up the stream. So right now, yeah, I have my, like, sex positive ace friend from the GSE club. I've got, you know, my closeted queer friend, dude who is not ace, but he's supportive because he's also closeted. We've got 2 ace friends. We've got Carl, the unassuming ace. We've got Alice, the religious panic ace who's coming to terms with herself. We've got my Spanish teacher who gave me a bad experience, and we've got my fandom friend who gave me a good experience. Now we've got the Eight of Wands, who's we're graduating. This is the last person I'm meeting. Who is the Eight of Wands? The Wands, the 8 is achievements, rewards, and the consequences of your actions. And the Wands deck is creativity, ambition, and courage. Passionate and unpredictable. Yeah, okay, so passionate, unpredictable, and about achievements, rewards, and the consequences of your actions. I'm gonna just straight up say that this is Austin, who is the salutatorian. Achievement. He's achieving being a salutatorian, and is also very ambitious. And I have a crush on him. And so that's an interesting dynamic here. So there's Austin. I have a crush on Austin. I know I'm asexual. I have some suspicions about Austin, but I'm not sure. And ultimately, I'm not sure if our relationship is going to work out. So I know that he's the smart guy from my class. What else is going on here? I got to get to know him a little bit better. We get the 10 of Swords. Oh no. 10 is the culmination of everything. Endings, both positive and negative. And the Swords is knowledge and the mind, greatest friends, but also greatest foes. The end of everything, culmination, endings positive and negative, and knowledge. This is graduation. So graduation happens. We go our separate ways because he's about to go off to college. I'm about to go off to college, a different college. I'm still not sure where we stand. I'm just reciting real life at this point. This is just what happened in real life. But at the same time, again, we both graduated, which means we don't have to sit by each other in class anymore. And you know what? I'm gonna shoot my shot. I'm gonna do it 1.5 years earlier than I did in real life. I'm gonna shoot my shot and lay my cards on the table and admit to Austin, maybe not that I have a crush on him just yet, but that I am asexual, and just see what his reaction to that is. So his internal world is this. The 10 of Wands. Austin is an opposed person who isn't queer, which is obviously not true of real life, but this is the person, this is my love interest, who I really, really have a huge crush on, who is not only not queer himself, but is opposed to the idea of asexuality. And then we get heartbreak. Because, not only does the guy I like not want to be with me because I'm asexual, but he's also a dick. So I'm not gonna end on that note. I'm gonna redeem myself. I'll do one more person. The 3 of Wands. Come on, friend. Be somebody nice. Groups and interactions, as well as progress and development. Creativity, ambition, and courage. Passion, unpredictable. So group creativity. This didn't happen in real life, but let's just say it did. Over the summer, I decided to get a bunch of friends together to make a movie, which I tried to do multiple times in high school and middle school. It never worked out. But this time, in this universe, it did. So I end up getting some friends together. We make a movie. Some friends of some friends come along. And, there's a girl in that group who I really start to notice. And her name is... I'm terrible at names. Mandy. So there's one named Mandy. She's got blue hair. I'm thinking of somebody in real life from high school right now. She's got blue hair, and I noticed her the moment she walks in the room. And she is on my crew. She's like a friend of a friend, but she knows how to operate a camera. So she's working on this film with me, this little film that we're just trying to wrangle together over the summer. And I think she's pretty cool. And she goes to another school. So like I didn't know her from my school. Like she's my friend who goes to another school. And she seems really nice, but I don't really know her that well yet. So what more about Mandy? The Four of Pentacles. Pentacles is about pragmatism and dependability. Earth element, like very grounded, very, very sensible. And the Four is stability and structure. So also very stable, dependable person. I notice that she's always really reliable, always coming to, our little shoots on time. I connect with her really well. She just feels very safe. And the summer is coming to an end, and I'm not really sure what to make of Mandy yet, but I think that we've made a pretty good connection. She seems like a pretty good friend. She'll probably go off to another school, but it's the end of the summer, so what do I have to lose? And I come out to Mandy, and I see the Seven of Wands. And Mandy is an uninformed person who isn't queer. So Mandy isn't queer. But she doesn't know anything about asexuality. She's never heard of it before. She's not opposed. She's not against the idea. She doesn't have anything negative to say to me. Her response when I tell her I'm asexual is, "What is that?" And so this is an interesting experience where I get to explain to Mandy, to this person for the first time, what asexuality is. And, I think this is a good place to end the game, because I have discovered, not only through myself, but also through the variety of people I've met through this game, what asexuality is. Asexuality can be a lack of sexual interest in any person and a lack of libido. Asexuality can be that's basically also what Alice is. But I would say in the case of Carl is somebody who's aromantic. I headcanon. Carl is somebody who's aromantic. So he's both aromantic and asexual. Alice is romantically attracted to men. So is definitely not aromantic, but is asexual. And is still on the process really of discovering who she is and coming out. And then Nyx is a sex positive ace. An ace who is not a virgin, an ace who is involved specifically in sexual relationships. And I'm still trying to figure myself out and where I fall in this game. In this 1 year of high school that I've just experienced, where I've sort of started to realize some things, but I'm not really sure where I fall. I realized I had romantic interest in somebody who turned out to be a jerk, so I'm definitely not aromantic. I'm just bad at picking men. Bad at picking people. But so what I explained to Mandy is the variety of asexual experience. And then Mandy is supportive, and Mandy is cool with me, and then I friend Mandy on Facebook, and occasionally we talk. And that's how the game ends. Mandy is a Taurus. That's so funny. So I think once I got into the groove of this game, this was pretty cool. Definitely check out, actually, let me see ending the game. There's probably some kind of, thing about this. The game ends once you decide it does, or when you have come out to everybody. Describe what the future holds for your character. Perhaps they find a more welcoming and ace-friendly space. Maybe the friends they gained as being part of the space are lifelong ones. You may flip over any remaining face-down cards. Maybe the space was more welcoming than you first expected, and maybe it isn't. You might incorporate these revelations into your conclusion as you see fit. So that's, that's kind of an interesting thing, actually. Like, if I had, for instance, if I pulled, like, the next 3, so, like, this person, and then this person. Like, right here we have an 8 of Swords, who would have been... An 8 of Swords is an openly queer person who is opposed to asexuality. So that would have been, like, my gay friend who doesn't think asexuality is real and think I'm co-opting his pain. The 4 of Cups is an uninformed queer person who is an ace. So that would be, like, my bi friend who has never heard of asexuality but is open to hearing about it. And then we have the 4 of Wands. This person is a supportive, closeted ace. So this person is somebody who's also asexual but isn't out about it. So all 3 people were queer, one of whom is supportive and also like me, one of whom is uninformed but could be supportive with more information, and the other one was queer openly but opposed. So that's an interesting variety of queer community experience that we kind of didn't get into in the game. Most of the people in the game were people who were not queer, at least not openly or closeted. But there you go. That's definitely, like, I can think of about 3 people who fit this bill in real life. So definitely a variety of experience. Thank you so much for joining me today. This has been another episode of Breakout Roles, our tabletop RPG series. I have some other ones on my channel if you haven't seen them before. There is My Brain is a Stick of Butter, which is an ADHD simulator, which was really fantastic. It's a solo RPG. We have Wildspeed Space Family, which is a Fast and Furious RPG. We have The Long Night in the Mech Bay, which is a relationship and repairing relationships and mechs, which I did with Greg, who is much more supportive in real life than he was in this game. And also not closeted as he was in this game. And so, yeah. Austin says, I wish I spent more of my life knowing my queerness. Yeah, same. And it's like, people who are currently in high school, don't underestimate how good it is. Like, the conversations that people are able to have. The fact that, like, this is something I can just do on the internet, and people, like, mostly understand what it's about, regardless of your age. These are not conversations we were having 10 to 15 years ago. This was not vocabulary we had 10 to 15 years ago. And this was not self-awareness that a lot of people had 10 to 15 years ago. And it was interesting to kind of think about, like, if I knew these things about myself back when I was that age, who would I have told? Who would I have talked to about it? What would the reactions have been? So I think setting it in high school was kind of an interesting experience for me, for sure. And what's funny is my mother, so my mother's in the chat right now. I don't know if she's dropped this in the chat at all or talked about this. Like, would I have told my parents back in the day? I will say, back when I was 26, I actually did realize my mother was one of the first people I told, probably 4 or 5, and I just dropped it casually in conversation at dinner one day. I was kind of just like, yeah, I'm like asexual. I'm just, this is what it means, whatever. And, like, the reason I felt pretty safe coming out to my mom about that is because I'm pretty sure my mom also is. I don't want to, like, label my mom, but, like, let's just say I get a lot of myself from my mom. And I actually think asexuality, like some things in life, in terms of queerness, are, the queerness is not genetic, right? Like, if it was genetic, it would have died out a long time ago, I think, in terms of, like, it's not, reproducible. I mean, depending upon what it is, but, like, it's not reproductively favorable for evolution. So it's got to be a combination of environment and genetics, or like people don't know where it comes from, honestly. Like, it's probably a mix of both. It's not inherently one or the other. I definitely think I can see the asexuality like lineage in my family though. Like it's pretty obvious. Like if you actually look at like my mother and my mom's mom and like her mom, like it is, we get it honest. I think it's very much like our family has that thing in common. The other stuff I don't really know where it comes from, because there's nobody in that side of the family who I believe experiences romantic or homosexual or like bisexual or pansexual attraction. I think I am unique in that regard. Maybe. Depends. My mom's is probably, I just don't put labels on myself. I don't feel the need to, but it's okay for others. That's how I feel about some things, for sure. So yeah, there you go. So my mom was a pretty safe person to talk to about asexuality. She gets it. And I think that even back in high school, like if that had been a realization I came to in high school, I think I would have told my mother, because I think, again, like my mom and I actually she was essentially a single mother starting from the time I was 8. And we would have very frank conversations about sex and relationships and crushes and that sort of things. Like, it was not a taboo topic between the two of us. And I think that that's probably why I never had any sort of like weird like hang-ups or repression or like shame or anything like that about sex and relationships or crushes or anything like that, was because it just like that was never a taboo. Mom says there's some cousins I expect. Oh, maybe. You're gonna have to text me later. Maybe. There's gotta be. I mean, it's like 10 to 20% of the population. Like, clearly, there's gotta be some people. Actually, there's an uncle that I have on my dad's side who I suspect, actually. But it's sad because you very much, you look in your family and you see people who are in their like 50s or 60s or 70s, and they are not like openly queer, but you wonder how much of that is a product of the time and a product of the upbringing and a product of like would things be different if they were born in a different year? And I think that this was an interesting experience of like, things would have been different had I been born in a different year. They would have. I would have probably realized a lot of things about myself 12, 15 years earlier than I actually did, because I was born in 1992, and that's just the product of, and luckily I was still able to learn it like fairly young, like in my 20s. But you know, think about people who are in their 50s now or 60s. And at that point, I think a lot of people are like, well, you know, I know myself. I'm not going to label myself, or like, I feel like I can't change or whatever. And that's why it's so courageous when people do decide to actually embrace who they are and fully come out and everything when they're older, because it takes so much self-reflection and bravery and just like mind elasticity to be able to change how you outwardly identify, like once you're past a certain age. And that's really inspiring. And you know, I wish that for everybody, that no matter your age, you can be able to identify and label yourself in a way that is comfortable, in a way that makes you feel good and makes you feel seen by yourself and others. Yeah, I have friends that never married, never saw the date, but I would consider asexual, but many thought that they were gay, but not knowing them, that isn't the case. Yeah, I think that it's so much more common than I think people think it is. Like, I think there are people who, like, are maybe asexual or aromantic who, I mean, like I said, I was called slurs. I was called lesbian slurs, like, back when I was in middle school, because that's the vocabulary that people had was, well, she doesn't want to be with guys, and she doesn't seem to, like, want to sleep with guys, so she's gay. And it's like, well, at the time, it's like, okay, yeah, maybe a little bit now, but like at the time, like, no, I was very much like, no, I'm not a lesbian. I know, like, to this day, I'm not a lesbian. I might experience some attraction to women, but like, I'm not exclusively. It's definitely not over 50%. It definitely 100%. So you know, and I think that that's why asexuality and visibility of asexual people it's so important, is because like there are people who grow up and are like, I'm different, but I'm not gay, so what am I? And representation matters, so that you can see somebody who's like you and like understand and have the vocabulary to express who you are. And so, yeah. But yeah, no, I think I would have told my mom that I was ace back in high school. I would not have told my dad. Well, I was bolder in high school, and I kind of didn't care about what my dad thought about things in high school as much as I do now. I say I don't think I would have in high school because as a 29-year-old, I still haven't told my dad. Mostly because I just don't think it would get anywhere. Like it would not bring me any satisfaction to tell him. Like there's nothing I would gain out of that experience, because he's either gonna be the uninformed person who argues with me about what it means. He's gonna be maybe a supportive person, but I still feel like, what difference does his support make? Like, it doesn't really matter. And then at worst, he's opposed and then says that I'm crazy, and like, I don't want to have that conversation. So like, Mom, even straight women are attracted to other women. Women are curvy and pretty, and men are not. Mom? Mom, go think about some things. She says your dad would have no clue. That's my thought too. It's like my dad would have no clue. Like he has no frame of reference. I'm, you know, like it would go so over his head. It's not even worth talking about to my dad. So yeah, no, I wouldn't tell my dad in high school. I haven't told him to this day. I haven't told him now. So, but I'm not like that head up about it. Like, cause it, you know. Aw, I cried yesterday telling my therapist about how important DE is to me because of the ace rep. Thank you so much, Atrocious. Pillow, here to take no prisoners. That's so funny. Yeah, it's just like, yeah, sounds pretty gay. Just say it, Mom. Mom in here with the hot takes. Chrissy says, I'm 31. I have no idea how my mom or my dad would react if I came out to them. It makes me kind of sad to think that we don't have an open relationship and are able to talk about these things. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely frustrating when your family, like I have family. The big thing that I had when I was younger, that it wasn't a coming out thing, but it was it is the thing that actually makes me measure how supportive I think somebody would be of asexuality. Because usually, if they're supportive of this thing, they will be supportive of the asexuality. If they're unsupportive of this thing, there's no way I'm coming out to them because there's no way they will understand or relate to asexuality. And I have known since I was 12 that I did not want to have kids. And I still to this day don't want to have kids. And I'm like vehemently child free. Like I don't want to have children. I don't want to be a parent. I've never had that desire. And what I got told over and over from so many cousins, from so many like teachers, from coworkers, from friends, from my father, when I was in middle school and high school, when I would say that to people, is you'll change your mind when you get older. And I got told that all the time. And there's still people to this day. Most people actually, I haven't heard it in a while, because most people understand that I'm almost 30 at this point. Like, Michelle's not changing her mind. But my mom was actually somebody who, like, pretty early on, like, I would say high school, college, like, she was pretty much like, yeah, no, like, you don't want kids. Yeah, I accept that. So, and I think my grandparents came around a little later, although they would still argue with me about it a little, but they kind of let it lie. But I had cousins who were like, no, you're gonna change when you meet the right guy. Like, you're gonna change, like, you'll get pregnant one day and you'll just keep it. And it's like, no, that's not happening to me. So no, that was actually kind of a good experience in the sense when I was younger of like, it did give me a kind of a metric. It gave me kind of a barometer of like, whether or not I think people would be acceptive of queerness, because if they're not accepting of the fact that I don't want kids, there's no way they're going to be accepting of all this shit. So I don't want her to have kids, says Mom. Yeah, no, because she knows that she'd have to take care of them. And she's like, I don't want to do that again. I'm an only child for a reason. So yeah, no, they've accepted it. My grandparents have accepted it. Yeah. Well, and also like neither like, I think neither of my parents, mom or dad, are people that I really think of when I think of like grandparent, especially my dad. Like, Mom, can you imagine dad as a grandpa? He probably will be at one point, because I have he has another child with somebody else, a half brother for me. So, you know, if my half brother ends up having kids, he will actually be a I'll be an aunt. Oh, that's weird. That's weird. I'm having a nephew or niece. I don't know. It's too early to tell. That kid's still pretty young, but still. I still have too much to do. I still have too much to do. I do. You know what my children are? My children are my movies. And, children are my movies. So, and much like my mother, I decided after one big one, you know, I'm not doing that again. After Detroit Evolution, I was like, yeah, that was great. I don't regret it. I'm glad I have it. I ain't doing that shit again. I have the one, right? We're gonna go do other things. We're gonna do a different method of giving birth next time. We're gonna go adopt or something, or foster some kids. I'll go have other people's movies for a year or two, and then we'll see what happens. So yeah. But anyway, yeah, okay, so this has been the Asexuality tabletop RPG. Go support the developer. I have linked to this on itch.io in the description if you want to go buy this for yourself, or if you have the Palestinian aid package from a couple months ago, that bundle from itch.io. You probably already have this in your bundle, so go check that out. This was really cool. Thank you to the developer. Let me put their name up. Allison, I think was their name. Let's go up. Allison. Thank you, Allison, for this game. And next week at noon Eastern, Saturday, I'll be doing another episode of Ships and Giggles with some friends, our improv show, our Whose Line Is It Anyway show. So come join us next Saturday on YouTube as we stream Ships and Giggles. Thanks for joining me for this. And as always, stay great, hydrate, and have a happy time zone.